Hello, all global TV family.
Welcome to our broadcast today.
Welcome, welcome.
Yeah, what are we going to talk about today, honey?
Well, we're going to talk about now.
Now.
And yes, the word now.
Following the now for your life, and then we're gonna talk a little bit about why are we in Seattle. We recently were in Nashville, Tennessee. Okay, and then God led us to go to Israel for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
We thought we'd be there longer, but 3 weeks. Then we found ourselves in Rome.
In Rome for 3 days, which was very nice.
Yes, and then we came back to Nashville, and then God actually just, as a surprise to us, brought us out to Seattle.
Oh yeah. We weren't expecting that one at all. It's just one day we were talking about Seattle. Remember that morning, and you asked me, what was I thinking, and I just felt like, you know what, it's time for us to preach, like not just witness, but the word that God has put in me, the word that God has put in you, is time for us to preach. And the next thing you know, we were offered an opportunity to come out to Seattle. And then we're like, okay, Lord, should we go to Seattle? Should we stay here? What should we do? And here we are sitting in a Starbucks trying to figure out what to do next. And all of a sudden the Lord said, go to Seattle.
He did. And
like that,
well,
Seattle.
He told you to go to Seattle 1st, and then I was asking him, Lord, really, do you want us to go to Seattle?
Right.
Put this up here.
Okay, so my arm.
And I was just really like, that moment, because you were about to buy tickets online, because and I was really along for the ride, and I felt positive about it, but I wanted to make sure that that's what he wanted us to do. And so I just kind of put my head down for a minute. I said, Lord, what do you think about Seattle? And then my head looked up, and all of a sudden we were in Starbucks, which we normally don't really go there.
Oh, we don't go there.
Yeah. And we lived near that Starbucks in Franklin, Tennessee for like over a year. Yeah. And I'd only been there maybe like three times. Yeah. And so and we almost went to a local university just a block away, but we felt to go to Starbucks first, not knowing that God would speak to us there. And when you said you felt Seattle, I put my head down. I'm like, God, are you sure? Do you want us to buy these tickets to go to Seattle? Because that was a whole change in direction.
Seriously.
And I was looking down when I was talking to God, and then as I looked up, all of a sudden I saw that big circle of
the Starbucks symbol.
Yeah, the Starbucks symbol, which isn't good. But anyways, he said Starbucks was started in Seattle, and that was my answer. I'm like, okay, buy the tickets. And we came out here. It's been a blessing.
Yep.
It's been a challenge socially.
And even the proof that, sorry to interrupt, even the proof that God was on the move was because when we both finally got the confirmation to go to Seattle, I'm online looking up tickets, and the ticket prices are like $438
per person.
And then all of a sudden an offer popped up for $171 per person.
Travelocity.
On Travelocity for $171 per person. And then while I was typing in our info, it dropped to $135 per person.
And we're like, bingo. And God kept that price for us.
Yeah.
And so
it was
$135 on really Alaska Airlines. And it was like a brand new plane.
Yeah, and to show how cheap those tickets are, whenever you buy tickets and you leave the next day, the tickets are never cheap. Never cheap. We bought those tickets on like the 6th. And landed here. No, we bought those tickets on the 7th and landed here on the 8th, less than 12 hours later.
Yeah, so we bought the tickets. Yeah. When you get a ticket that low through Travelocity, they have this like program that you don't get to know when you're going to leave. You just kind of have to, if you want the low price, you just buy the tickets and they tell you when you're going to leave. Well, we didn't really have any kind of schedule, so that was fine for us. We bought the tickets, and then it told us we were leaving at 7 a.m. the next morning.
Yeah.
From the Nashville airport to come here to Seattle.
No problem.
Yeah.
So basically we just like repacked our suitcases.
We went to our storage, which was just
across the street.
Yeah, across the street from where we were.
Repacked our suitcases.
Repacked, because we had our more luggage for our trip when we went to Israel. And so we went down to kind of half, so we had to repack that.
And we repacked for cooler weather because Seattle is not Israel.
Yeah, because it's very hot in Europe at this time, and it's cooler here. We didn't know how long we'd be here, so we were kind of packing in preparation of in case we'd be here a little bit longer.
Right.
Because right now is like the best time we've been told, especially by the person that we're staying with, that this is the best time to be in the Northwest, because normally maybe in about a month, September, it starts raining, and it just rains for like 9 months typically, and then it goes into a little bit of snow and cold weather. But right now it's just beautiful in the 70s, amazing weather.
We are not sweating. We are not roasting like we were in Israel.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
In fact, we're about to go
to the park,
do some exercise.
Yeah.
We've been doing a lot of kind of work to set up here, but God may. We're only here temporarily in the place that we're staying now, so we are literally living
in the
now.
Yeah.
Just what God gave one of your spiritual fathers a message years ago about living in the now, and that was one of the main messages that stuck with you.
Yeah,
the impartation for you.
One of the things Rick Manis, that was my pastor back then, my spiritual father, said.
How long did you serve him?
Oh boy, I started going to his church back in '91. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so 1991.
What did you do while you were there?
Keyboard player, praise and worship leader for a couple of years. Yeah. He was basically my spiritual father, and I was his son. So I just learned from him. You know, God gave me a heart to learn from him, to not just hear teachings, but get the heart of what he was saying. And like one of the things,
and he's a very gifted prophetic teacher.
Yes, he
and
is.
In fact,
and an apostle
if you
too.
hadn't have followed him and served him, that led you out to California, which is where we met 25 years ago. Very briefly, because I was on a worship team, well, about 5 worship teams in the same Bible school church for a long period of time. But at that point when I met you, I was pregnant with my second son, Mark, who's now 23. And I was on the worship teams, but I was kind of heading out because I was about to, basically have Mark.
Yeah.
I was about to go and give birth. And I was always singing probably about 5-6 times a week, honestly, at that point, because I was in Bible school, that kind of thing. And they had different I was on
different praise and worship teams.
I was on the main team, our Bible school team, the youth team, a traveling team, and a Spanish team.
Yeah.
I was on a lot of worship teams at that point. And but I had to kind of slow down as I went through my pregnancy. And by the time you came to California from Florida and you started on the team, I was still singing, but I was starting to get so big that I couldn't get enough breath to push out the air that I needed to.
Yeah, we were only on stage twice before you.
I mean, you remember that. I don't even remember that. I just remember, we had children that were at the same kind of age. So that's all I remember. We might have spoke once, barely. Never would we have thought that we'd ever be married. So
never.
Yeah. So
never.
The only time we really got to know each other was just the years before we got married here recently.
Yeah.
God just
started out with you being bold. You said the election was stolen, and I thumbs up, and I was like, respect your boldness. That's really how it started.
Yeah. And we just did a video, our last video, talked about General Mike Flynn.
Yeah.
And how he actually boldly said, our election was stolen. This is why they did it. This is some of how.
And this is what they're going to do.
And so watch that video. Please. It's on our YouTube.
Our Global TV channel.
Yes.
So back to the now thing. The thing that Rick preached when he preached at the Bible college that one time, he was talking about God is preparing this generation that has a sense of now about them. And one of the things he said was the now generation, he said obstacles and barriers do not intimidate them. When God says go, they're gone. And instead of waiting for money, how do you say it? He said, instead of asking money for permission, when God says go, they're gone, and the money has to catch up with them, basically.
And that doesn't mean that you don't feel the challenge of that,
right,
because that's how we've lived.
Yeah.
I lived that before we were married. You have too.
Yeah.
And we have really lived that since we've been married. We got married. If you think about getting everything set up so that you can, get married in a certain way and start a certain way, it seemed like when God finally brought us into each other's life, it seemed like it would have been the worst circumstances to like get married.
Absolutely.
In fact, in my life, I had just moved again. God had moved me around the country like 9 times in 15 years. So I was getting kind of tired of that, to be honest with you. But it's what he asked me to do. And,
right.
And I had just moved from Idaho to Nashville, and it had been like maybe 3 years since COVID had first started. Never had COVID. I got COVID twice. But also because he told me to stop doing Pilates, like working in that field. And I just felt like, well, I need to keep working. I didn't obey him, and I got COVID twice. So that was just with the stress of the move. We had the biggest U-Haul. It was just like it took a month to get in our place. There's just so much going on. We get caught. I felt like he wanted me to stop working, but I felt like, we just get these like, oh, I need to keep, making money or whatever it is. And, that's costly. That's why we can't consult money, because then what happened, I ended up getting COVID and then having to go to the emergency room. They did nothing. So then all that time I worked, was kind of, the money was taken from the emergency room, which is ridiculous. I call it the medical mafia.
Yeah. And that was the thing. That was the other thing that he preached on that same sermon. He said, we have got to get to the point. The body of Christ has got to get to the point where we stop asking money for permission to obey God. He said, because if you ask money for permission, money will always tell you, no, you can't obey God.
And sometimes we think we're doing the responsible thing, but it's not responsible if you know how to hear his voice. He's saying,
don't do that.
Okay, switch this season now.
Right.
Well, we still need to, work and what we know how to do and this and that. No, I'm saying switch the season now. I was slow on that, and then I got to the point where I couldn't keep teaching.
Right.
And then I didn't know until just like a little down the road, months down the road, that I'd be getting married to you. Like, I never would have guessed that.
Me neither. As a matter of fact, when you said back in February, you're like, James, I'm starting to see wedding rings everywhere. I think I'm going to get married. And
I started as a seer.
Yeah.
Like, I hadn't been married for 12 years. As a seer, started seeing all this wedding stuff, and I'm like, okay, I haven't seen anything like that in 12 years. I'm more of a married type, not really a single type.
Yeah.
But I'm not the type that believes in dating or anything like that. So I was waiting for the right,
Yeah, the right one, the right time. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was so funny because, like, we didn't talk to each other that much.
So to see all these signs was really different.
Yeah.
I knew he was speaking because in 12 years I'd never seen signs like that.
Right. And like, we didn't talk really that much, and so that was like February of last year, and we messaged whatever, and you said, James, I'm seeing wedding rings and Target signs everywhere. I think I'm going to be getting married. And when you said that, I felt like a gentle push in my stomach, almost like if someone like took their fist and it's like pushed in your stomach. And I was like, yeah, you're going to get married this year.
That's how your gift works. You feel that kind of physical manifestation in that way.
I was like, yeah, you're going to get married this year. And she's like, really? And I was like, yeah. And I said, and it's not December 31st. It's going to be way before the end of the year. I said, so don't be surprised if you get married like quick. Had no idea it was me.
That's an example of following the Spirit into a now.
Yeah.
Being part of what since I've heard your testimony about this now message, I said it's like the now generation.
Yeah.
It's like the now generation.
Yeah.
We are part of the now generation. What does that mean? We're in the end times. Things are speeding up. In fact, it talks in the New Testament about if things didn't speed up, then that would...
everyone will be consumed.
Yeah. So we want to talk today about how we followed this, like, sometimes in the natural. I taught Pilates for 10 years. I've done Pilates for about 20 years. Pilates is very methodical. So some people would look at me and be like, well, why did you move all this time? Well, I didn't move all that much. I moved some, but not all that much before this last season, when God had me start moving apostolically around America for ministry's sake. But, and to do it as a single mom at that point, all those moves, it's a lot of physical work, mental, every state is different. So you have to start over each time with the differences, get to know the lay of the land each time you move. So that takes a lot of faith and just a lot of resources, just mentally, physically, all that.
Right.
So there is a cost to following the now of your life, but God does miracles.
Yes, he does. As a matter of fact, that's where he does them because Because when God tells you to move or do something and you just obey him because you love him and because you believe, he's actually putting yourself in a position where you need his power to come through for you. Because, I mean, you know,
you're choosing to put yourself in a place where you have to trust him.
Right. Just
because you're not leaning on the arm of the flesh.
Right. Just how like you always say, you know, you're on God's time and on God's dime. Well, if God's time is now and he tells you to move and you move when he tells you to, and
or
not
to get married, or to you know,
move in any
to
kind
sell
of way.
your car that you don't want to sell.
Right.
We just did that.
Right. So pretty much when you move, when God tells you to move, his power is going to be there to back you up because you're not obeying the circumstances. You're not obeying money. You're literally obeying his voice.
Does that mean it's easy squeezy and your flesh won't react? Oh no, your flesh will react. Believe me.
Mm-hmm.
But that's where you learn how to put down your flesh and to keep walking on the water with the Lord. And sometimes in some of the moves, I'm like, I feel like I didn't even have water. I was like walking on air. You know, we're referring to like Jesus and Peter when Peter walked on the water. Yeah. Sometimes when God called me out to states, or even how he just said, like, you know, sell the car that was just paid off before we got married, and then, you know, get rid of most of what you have, go to Israel. We thought we were going to stay there longer. We will go back, but now come back here. Well, I just sold my car. Why would you have me come back here? Like, and then we come back, we're like, well, where do you want us to be, Lord? And then he's like, go to Seattle.
Yeah, a week later, Seattle. We're like,
and now we're just here for a certain amount of time. We don't know. At least in this, like, the place that we're staying is, you know, to the end of the month. And then what's after that? We don't know. We're living, the sons of God
are led by the Spirit of God. And
the now generation.
As the now generation, because
we're having to live what we preach.
Yeah. And the thing is, when you live what you preach, that's where the anointing is. That's where the power is. There's no anointing when you're just repeating words, but like when you back up what you say with your lifestyle, that's where the power is. That's where God comes through. That's where God shows up.
Isn't it in the book of James that faith without works is dead? I love the book of James.
Yeah, and also James says, you say you have faith.
Your name is James, by the way.
Yes, it is. He said, you say you have faith. I show you my faith by what I do.
That's right.
And that's the difference. That's
where the rubber meets the road. And that means, you know what? Your rubber might need to meet the road to like move on down the road.
Yeah. Speaking of rubber meeting the road, we got like a minute and a half. So
we gotta go. Well, okay. So we just want to encourage you today that you are part of the now generation, like we are, and that this time is a different time, and God is making a clarion call. Will you follow me into the now of your season, your life? What were you born to do? Yeah,
because, you know, people are saying that, you know, this is the great harvest. This is the last days. God's got an end time harvest, an end time harvest. Well, guess what? The end time harvest comes when you go harvest it. Jesus said, don't say to yourself, there's 4 more months. He said, no, the harvest is plenty now. Pray for laborers to go into the harvest. What are those laborers going to do? They're going to go now.
And I hear him saying right now, you are not the Lord of the harvest. I am not the Lord of the harvest. I am not the Lord of the harvest. Right. He is the Lord of the harvest. And what does that mean? We don't figure things out mentally.
The Lord does.
Okay, we follow the Lord of the harvest.
That's right.
Okay, so it's not what you can figure out. You have to learn to follow him as the sons of God are led by the Spirit of God. Learn to follow the Lord of the harvest, because he will show you where you're going to harvest. And it may change from month to month, from year to year. That's how it is for us. Yeah. Yours might be different, but he is a Lord of the harvest. Are you willing to harvest and follow him into that harvest?
Right. So continue to like, subscribe, and follow. Tell your friends, tell your family, and we'll keep you informed as God is informing us. Love you guys. Bye-bye.
Love you.